Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've already been introduced by the moderator. I'm going to give you a presentation on social protection for informal sectors in Namibia from a policy and program perspective. I thought I was going to be lucky because when I was looking at the program, there was a presentation that was supposed to come before mine, and that was supposed to come from Ministry of Trade and Industry. So I thought he was going to set some records for me, but then I have been unfortunate, so I think I need to go into more detail as possible. So that's the outline of my presentation. I'll give you a little bit on the situation analysis. I'll also talk about the current programs that the government is implementing, given that the social protection is a social responsibility. I'll then talk about the challenges in the informal economy, and then I'll conclude by providing reforms in the proposals that will be able to make social protection in Namibia so inclusive. So to start off the presentation, I will start by defining social protection from this presentation's perspective. So like the previous presenters have presented, we have different definitions of what social protection and also what informal economy is. But for the purpose of this presentation, I will define social protection as a set of systems, or rather a system of public policies and programs that assist the poor and the most vulnerable people to prepare for the risk and cope with the shocks throughout their lifetime. So the key message in this definition is who are we targeting? So the most poor and vulnerable part of the society is our target. And then in terms of informal economy, which is sometimes referred to as the grey economy, it's the economy that is made up of enterprises that are neither taxed nor regulated by any form of government. So the activities that are undertaken are sometimes not included in the GDP of the country. So in terms of informality, what we can say is that it can also be seen from a perspective of individuals that comprises those in employment or in self-employment that have no proper contracts according to the labor laws and the lack of social securities, medical aid, decent wages, and safe working conditions. So from a national goal perspective, what we want as a country is to have a more effective and also efficiency social protection system that is also inclusive. So when we talk about inclusivity, we want a social protection system where even the less fortunate and those that are in informal economies are included or are rather socially protected. So in terms of situation analysis, I want to give the audience a bit of a feel on where we are standing in terms of poverty in the country. So as you can see on the graph, for a period of 13 years, from 2013-14 to 2015-16, Namibia had been able to reduce poverty for the poor and the severe poor from 37.5 and 21% to 17.4 and 11%. So with that having been said, we can really see that the programs that we are putting as a country is working. Although 17 and 11 is not really ideal for a country like Namibia, but we need to recognize the effort, and we look forward to reducing it even further. And in terms of food poverty, we have been able to reduce it from 11 to 6% during the 2015-16 period. So we still have people in the country that are food insecure. So in terms of inequality, so much has been done, yes, but we are really not winning in terms of inequality. As you can see that from 2003 and 4 to 2015-16, which is the same period of 13 years, we have only reduced inequality from 0.60 to only 0.56. And the ideal situation is for us at least to have inequality of closer to 0. And we are not even halfway. So it shows that much effort really needs to be done so that we are able to reduce inequality. And the reason why I highlighted on poverty and inequality, these two are the ones or the reason for the need of social protection, because if we don't have poor people and we are equal in terms of income, we would not have or we wouldn't need too much of social protection programs. So I also provided some data on the population and also in terms of labor force. So from the labor force survey that was conducted in 2016, we have seen that Namibia's population stands at 2.3. And out of that, we have people that are economically active, and it stands at 1 million. Those that are economically inactive, it stands at 451.9, and if we are to include the under 15, because they are also not active to work. So the under 15 stands at 846.2 million. So in terms of percentage-wise, what we can see in terms of employment and unemployment, we only have a population of, the labor active people who are employed at the total is 66%. And then those that are not employed, it stands at 34%. So the unemployment rate in the country currently stands at 34%. So now the existence of informal employment, it now comprises of some in this employed, because like it was also earlier indicated, some of the people that they are employed, but they are informally employed because some of them, they don't have contracts, some of them they are undergoing challenging working conditions. So they are, portion of them, they are standing in here, while most of them are lying under unemployed. So from a government perspective, we can see that the government of Namibia has already committed itself toward the providing social protection for all, and this can be evidenced from its budget provision. So for the current budget, the 2018-19 budget, there is provision of 8.7% funds that are earmarked for programs of social protection nature. So social safety net programs plays a huge role in reducing or eradicating poverty and also reducing income, gaps. And this is done through provision of education, provision of food, as well as healthcare. And then it's also evident from the National House and Income Expenditure Survey that the grants that the government is providing plays a huge role in terms of reducing poverty. So it has significantly reduced poverty. So I will then give you some of the programs that the government is currently implementing that are aimed to reduce poverty and also minimize the income gaps. So one of the programs that the government is implementing is the old age and disability grants, with the beneficiaries standing at 213.3 thousand, and they are getting an amount of 1,250 per month. And for the child grant, we have about 693,000 children that are beneficiaries of the child grant. And currently, the coverage stands at 37% of the children population, which is 991,000. So in these ones, they are getting a 250 per month. On the War Veteran Grant, the figure in terms of beneficiaries stands at 271, and they are earning an amount of 2,200 per month. And on this one, it's only given to those that are either unemployed or have a lower income on the threshold that is provided. And then we have programs for marginalized. I'm sure Mr. Kamatuka is going to be angry if I don't mention this, because he is one of those people that are behind it and they really need support. So in terms of marginalized communities, they have beneficiaries, students and learners that they are supporting in terms of education, either at a primary level or at an institution of higher learning level, where they have 829 students that they are supporting. So, and with that support, in addition to the support, they also give them an amount varying from between 500 and 1,000 per month as a living allowance. So, in addition to the grant that they are providing, they also have communities that they are providing food to, and is currently standing at 182,000 households. So there is provision for food under the Marginalized Community Program. So school feeding is also a safety net program. It's currently 894,000 kids or students, children are receiving school feedings, or they are receiving food at the schools, and 1,456 students, schools, they are currently distributing food to the kids when they come to school. So the amount budgeted for this year stands at 109.7 million. So for maternity, Olga is here, maybe she will assist us with the beneficiaries, but we don't have data today. But what we can say, there is provision for maternity, and then they have a maximum amount of 13,000 that they give to the mothers that go on maternity leaves. We have the food bank programs under the Ministry of Poverty Eradication and Social Welfare that distribute food to the people or the most poor people in the urban, and this is to complement the assistance that is being given by the Office of the Prime Minister under disaster risk management. So the disaster risk management is given to the people that are in the rural area, while the food bank is given to those that reside in peri-urban and urban parts of the country. So food bank currently, it has been rolled out to 4 regions, and then we have beneficiaries of about 16,000 households. And the budget for the food bank stands at 52 million for this current financial year. So for the disaster risk management, in 2016-17, we got a figure that the disaster risk management was able to assist about 595.8 thousand beneficiaries, and that is the period where there was natural disasters of drought. So I'm now going to highlight, because I'm going to highlight the programs that we are implementing, the one that I previously indicated, how they are responding to the risks of life. So, for example, the old age and disability grant, veteran grant, as well as the marginalized grant, they respond to the issues of poverty, aging, as well as inability. While the child grant and early childhood development programs of government and the school feeding, they respond to the issues or the risk of child care supports, nutrition, as well as school attendance. So, like for example, the school feeding is put in place so that we are able to keep kids at school. And when we keep them at school, they will be active because they have at least received a meal. Because some of them from home, they don't eat before they go to school, so at least they will then have that privilege to eat. Then they will be active. So for maternity, sick leave, and death benefits is to respond to the shocks of maternal, infant mortalities, illness, as well as to give assurance for the lifetime of the people. So we also have programs that benefits the youth and women, as well as the SMEs. And the reason why we are doing that is we want to prevent the risk of unemployment as well as income insecurity. Support to the farmers is for natural disasters, productivity, as well as food insecurity, while the vocational training and skill development is to break the gaps in terms of skill and also to increase employment. So we have other programs of government that I have not listed. I only listed some of them. And those ones include, like, for example, the provision that is being given to the students for the Namibia students financial assistance to assist the students to enroll or further their studies. So there are many, many programs that the government is currently implementing, and they are aimed toward providing supports in terms of social safety net and also for the provision of social protection. So I have highlighted some of the reasons why we need to have social protection, and I have touched on the issues of poverty and inequality, investment in skill development, productivity, and increase resilience, And social protection is also seen as one of the catalysts for sustainable economic growth. But of course, it should be growth that is proper. This one, I want to highlight a little bit, but the earlier speakers have already talked about it, on the who are the players. So most of the players have been mentioned by the preceding presenters, but for the purpose of this presentation, let me just indicate that the informal sector's occupational group includes the SMEs, the domestic workers, agricultural workers, hairdressers, street vendors, as well as home-based workers. So those are just some of the categories of the occupations that forms informal sector. Now we have to answer the question of why they exist. So the informal sectors exist because of tenderous and demanding regulations. So for one to register in a business and also maybe file tax returns, that process is really discouraging. As the Honorable Minister had indicated earlier, there is bureaucracy, and that discourages people to register or to move from formal to stay in informal. And you can imagine the problem that we have is that we don't have a one-stop shop where registration can be done. So imagine you have to register your business. You need to run to Ministry of Trade. After running from Trade, you need to find even an accountant for your business for you to be registered. And then again, you run to Social Security, you run to Employment Equity Commission, Ministry of Finance, and it requires money. And this is the money that these people don't have. So that's why some of them, they are really ideal to register. It's not that they don't want, but the process is really discouraging. And then, as a result, many informal economy, they disregard the labor laws. There is also weakness in the enforcement. So as a result, they are exposed to unsafe working conditions, and now they lack social security and also inadequate medical insurance at the workplace. So some of them, they are employed yet, but they don't have those benefits. So challenges continues. So informal economy, we have indicated that they are not regulated. Some of them are not even have a fixed workplace, and this is due to their unregistered nature. So the informal economy is very large and is diversified, and there is also no legislation that will regulate the existence of the informal sector. So in addition to that, there are also lack of platforms for which they can air their views. So informal workers also, they have multiple jobs, of which some are seasonal. And because also of the nature of their work, sometimes they don't even have time to have platforms so that they can have discussions on how they can benefit from some of the program, because most of the time they are trying to catch up on the income. So the labor survey indicated that about 66.5% of the people that are employed, they are in informal employment because they have no provision for pension funds, they have no provision for medical aid, as well as social security. And this now causes them to risk such as health risk and also retirement benefits. So whenever they reach that age, they will not have any other source of income other than perhaps the grant that the government is currently providing. So that exposes them to risks. So I'll then, in conclusion, do the reforms and the proposal that are being put forward for us to ensure that there's inclusivity in terms of social protection, and that would then include the people that are in the informal economy. So number one have been mentioned already. We need to develop and implement a national pension fund as per the Social Security Act. So the Social Security Act have made provision for a national pension fund, but implementation or the development rather have not yet kicked off. That's why we are saying we need to develop and implement this part or this section of the Social Security Act. So this will then include provision of a provident fund, which is voluntary entry and exit, and it can then attack informal business and workers. So in addition to that, the Act for Social Security have also made provision for a national medical benefit fund, but this one have also not been implemented. I have been informed that Ministry of Health is looking at how they can develop, and I think the development process have started. So we also need to encourage voluntary participation through Social Security Commissions. So like it had been earlier indicated, Social Security Commissions, these people or the workers in the informal sectors, their job is not fixed. So sometimes they have and sometimes they don't have, as it was indicated in the video. So we then need to have measures on how we can help them for them to benefit in terms of social protection, Social Security Act. So as a part of the reform, we also need to simplify the business registration process. We need to establish a one-stop shop where a person can enter in the room, and when they leave that room, they have already registered with all necessary institutions of that as per the requirements. We also need to enhance capacity for the informal sectors to reduce their economic and social risks. We need to organize informal economies into cooperative and increase access to finance. So one of the reasons why the informal sector exists to the extent that it exists is because these people, they are also not organized. So if we can help them so that we organize them into groups of cooperative, so that this will even increase their chances of getting access to finance, because most of them, they also have a problem because they don't have capital to keep up their business or even to start off for that matter. So efforts should also be made to formalize the sector through empowerment, business supports, training, coaching, and mentorship. So we are also saying that we need to fully implement the blueprint on wealth redistribution and poverty eradication, because most of the activities that have been highlighted under the blueprint on wealth redistribution and poverty eradication can cater for the informal economies, and it can also help us to extend social protection. For example, the implementation of the BIG, it had been proposed as one of the activities in the blueprint on wealth redistribution, and we are saying that the basic income grant, some of the people, they are against it. They are saying it will encourage a tendency of dependence, but I sometimes listen to these conversations, and I want these people to imagine, or rather put themselves into the shoes of those people that are not that are excluded. And even if when we understand that there is really a need for us to cater the gap that is currently existing. And when we talk about the gap, it's the people between the age of 18 and 59, those that are not included in any of the grants, so that at least that grant can form a base of an incentive for them to come up with something that they can help themselves on. And my last point would be on the need to finalize and implement a social protection framework. So this one, the Ministry of Poverty Eradication and Social Welfare is busy formulating a social protection policy so that it guides the implementation of social protection for the country. And I think this conference came at the right time because the policy document is still in a draft form. So the recommendations that are going to come from this platform will be considered in the finalization of the social protection policy framework, so that we will be able to cover the informal sector when we finalize the development of this policy. And with those long remarks, I thank you.
Inge, you can assist before computer. Anyway, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Director of Proceeding. It's really an opportunity for me to stand here and take some of the issues so that it can inform our discussion going forward. And I'm very happy that there are a few MPs. There is also governors, so that they can understand. Sometimes when we are dealing with these issues, not mean that we hate Namibia, but we just want better Namibia. And while they are busy with that one, I want to just highlight 2 points that have drawn my attention. The one is the one from a comment from Zambia. When you talk about that there is a tendency when someone calls you in the hall, talk whatever he or she talking, and then later on, they go and do whatever they want to do. By doing so, then they say that you are consulted. We have that typical example now with the bill that will be debated in Parliament, the education bill. Honorable, please, to do an honorable thing, refer the bill back if you want us to address inequality and quality education. The other one is the one that also referred to the decommodifications. You know, the previous speaker spoke nicely, outlined all those kind of things. But there is only one program that one could say, this program is universal and comprehensive, it's all age. All the rest, you have to pay a price. Price being whether you have to lose your mother, or you have to be a war veteran, or you have to lose your leg. What kind of social protection is that? So what I say is that what is the difference between a child born, but that child has both of the parents are alive, and they have no means of survival? That child and the one who lost one parent, what is the difference between? Now you see that the child and the mother connive, and they start praying for the father to die so they can go to 250. So the programs that are there are completely inefficient. We go to the school fitting programs. Schools go for 2-3 months without receiving those bags of food. Teachers have to go and collect the money for the program to. And the last one, before I come to my point, is I also feel it annoyed when a government official or a minister standing here says that, no, the problem is the bureaucratic, is what, but who should change it? If you are the one who is trusted by the Namibian people to change the system, make the system efficient, effective, responsive, but you are the one crying with us. So I want to thank you very much for that. Where do I go here? Okay, that's fine. I brought this one. Okay, I'm running very fast. Okay, me puede. the point of it. Anyway, I brought this one for us to understand, because many people have been understanding, we talk about informal sectors, we are referring to Havana and what. Not knowing that the workers that are working in Shoprite are also informal. Although Shoprite is a formal company. And that's why I brought with me a Secretary General from the union organizing also United Workers. So that component is very important for us to understand. That we have informal workers in the formal companies. Now let's look at that one. That's according to the labor force survey. Of course, down the total employed is 66%. The previous speaker have highlighted it. Of the 66% of employed, 66.5 are in the informal sector. 66.5 of the 66% employed are in informal sector. And look there, in most cases, the rural, the urban, the highest number is informal. Rural, the highest number is also informal. So the formal in rural might only be the government officials. The Ministry of Health, the Ministry of what? They might only be that group. Now, of that group, of the 66%, we have 93.2 of paid within the 66.5. 93 are paid, meaning at the end, a small salary. Of this one, now 75.3% they earn in the informal sector. They earn less than 2,000 per month. I think that Dr. Cooper, you will not beat me. Because some of these are from your paper. 75.3 of the 66.5 informal, they earn less than 2,000 per month. Now, we are all having pen. Can you take your pen and the booklet that we are given? Write the 2,000, that we're taking the maximum. The average price of renting a shack in Widu, a shack, this house's name, is 700. Write down. Then you write down also 288. That is for bread every day if your child goes to school. Then you go on for the taxi. I know that most of the poor one in Namibia, the kids are walking. So we leave the taxi out. We go to food. The average food that can take a poor family through is 800. How much is left? Now what is left is the one that we are thinking of. They should start contributing to social security. Can you see that? Contribute to social security and do other things. I only mentioned food, I haven't mentioned even toiletry, clothing and those kind of things. So that portion is the one that we have now to consider what contribution can make to social security. And mind you, Dr. Mote is here, luckily. She was a commission, part of the wage commissions on domestic workers. They produced that report, and that report lies in the Ministry of Labor 2 years without being discussed. One day I wrote a letter to them, I want to see the minister, and in my list there was the report of domestic workers. I miss Mr. Muya is around, he left. Normally when the minister comes and meet us, they bring the big guns. It's technocrats. And when we came at the topic, when we were discussing the minimum wage or the implementation of the report on the minimum wage of domestic workers, everybody on the other side, the ministry side, ran to their cell phone at the same time. Then I was wondering why. When I realized they were calculating their salary minus the minimum wage. How much they will be left with. And then that report slides there because the people who take decisions, they were putting themselves first. If this 1,900 get from my salary, what would be left with? So the ministry had a problem. Now it went to cabinet. It was worse. Then it went to parliament. It was worse because everybody had to pass the decision. They were already affecting them, conflict of interest. Now imagine if this conference agrees that the employer and the employee must contribute to social security benefit. Because most of the decision makers, they own shebeens. Do you know that? Most of them, they have these family workers, whatsoever, they are paid. Now, is this policy going to see the daylight? The answer is no. And then they will start laboring when we are saying that, let's demand this minimum wage. So these kind of things are things that we are experienced with. Now, in 2014, Tugna came up with this proposal. And this proposal is a chapter on informal economy. And we have identified 3 important responses. What we think as a labor movement we should advocate for. 1 is a regulation, 2 is a protection, 3 is a promotion. Now, what is the meaning of the regulation that we're referring to? What we are saying is that for the regulations, we need to promote or we need to enact appropriate regulations for both enterprises and employment that balance economic efficiency and social distributions. Of course, for enterprise, they'll be talking about, no, we need access to finances. We had SME Bank. Where is it? Haven't we, as a country, developed intervention there? We're unable to run it. And not because we have incompetent Namibians. We have competent Namibians, but they are wrongly used. Then we talk about the issues of protections, which is very important. We need to protect the workers. I was perusing the labor act the other time, just under the health and safety section. You know what it's saying? Only employment with more than 100 workers should have health and safety committee. In which business do we have, except Ramadan that is closed, that has so many workers? So even the people that were putting that law into place, they were super thinking in a different world. So we need to go to basic. Even in informal sector, where there is a shebeen, where there is a jukebox, what are the health and safety hazards experienced there? This music that this person listening for the whole 24, it's 15 hours, I think, that the Kabashu workers working. What is happening to his or her eardrum? So we have many things that we need to unpack. And we talk about the promotions, which are indicated that we need to promote, so in the issues of marketing, access to capital, and many more. So, but these are detailed in the Tugna proposals. So we don't just criticize, as some people think that 30 years to criticize. Not true. We produce reports, just create the dialogue. We will show you. The other one now, how are the informality distributed in the regions? You could see the regions, the 2 Kabangos or Musatis, they are the highest. Now I want you to keep this in mind. When we go to the next slides, we try also to bring it forth. Then we have another one now as per industry. You see the agriculture and forestry, fishing, they are the biggest. Which means that if we discount the informal sectors or informal employed people, we might have very small kind of margin. But that will never be possible because the policy makers are the farm owners as well. And they will never want decent life where they can spend more from their pocket to make the life decent for that employee. So it's a challenge, but we need to fight. And we talk about the issues of retail, also featuring, manufacturing or featuring, and how do we deal with the situation? Of course, the ILO representative, the director, my own sister, I think she's around. Yes. But we are still waiting for the report on the study on minimum wage in Namibia. It's a year now. We want to debate this so that we see how do we go about it. So this is our distributions of people's employed as per the India Statistics Agency 2016. Then what is very important I think that the previous speaker referred to that the informal is not captured within the revenue collections. And there is also a notion that I disputed when I was making a presentation last week in Tanzania, where I said that notion to say that informal sectors are not paying tax is nonsense. Because when you are going to buy whatever you're going to sell at the Kapana, is there no VAT added to that? Huh? If a maize mill sold to a person who's going to do informal activities, the VAT is reduced. Isn't it? No. And who pays that VAT? Is that the same person for informal sector? So we should never look at one component and try to magnify it just to tarnish whatever we are tarnishing. No way. They are paying tax. And in fact, they are the most buyers. If you talk about informal sectors to brewery, they want to run out. But anyway, these are the statistics carried out. And that particular year is what is 2016. It recorded that the informal trading between the countries, it accounted to 20 million. But they were only carrying out that survey at selected border posts. Not all the border posts that we have in Namibia. And you could see fish. There is exports and there is an import. What we can, so there is exchange. We export fish, there is it. Then percentage-wise, then we also import vegetables on this side. You know that Namibia is a very dry country. So we want to be associated with Zimbabwe and Zambia and kind of Angola here, so we can have some vegetation. That's why we have many goats and whatsoever in Namibia, because we cannot plant only during rainy season. Then we have territories. I mean, we have alcohol also coming in there, informally exported or imported also. Maybe that is on weekend, those kind of thing, I don't know. Then clothing, beverages, tobacco, sugars, and the list goes on. Meaning that the informal activities are participating in cross-border trading. It is there. The only reason that it's not captured is because of the threshold created. And it's high time to talk to those institutions, Bank of Namibia and others, so that they can also start talking this topic. We can benefit from this if we are serious about it. Then who are these countries that we are mainly, trading with? You see, the import and the export. Export mainly is Angola, 82%. You should also understand. So the other person was making a joke during the land conference. That many people, you know that most people from the north were claiming that no, we should not talk about ancestral land. But someone said, no, don't worry about that person. He was mentioning person X. That person, family is in Angola. You talk about ancestral land, it means that person must go back to Angola. He will not want to go. So the family's issues also in cross borders are playing a role. Maybe that movement of goods, where you buy to your family on the other side or bring to this side, it goes that way. Then we have Zambia. Zambia's, they are buying a lot of fish informally to us. We have South Africa, Angola also topping the list here, South Africa becoming second this side, Zambia becoming third. Botswana is not featuring, Zimbabwe is not featuring because those borders, they were not part of the saving. Now I'm trying to bring this because we have always taken the other side. They cannot contribute, they cannot do whatsoever, but they can play a role in trading as well. They are doing it. But how do we now move forward to ensure that they are doing that is supposed to be done? To conclude, then I can engage in questions, maybe later. I wanted to mention the issues, I think that, just to ask a simple question. How many us, the female colleagues of us that are here, that are willing to take maternity leave? Just raise your hand. Except I know that Olga will raise. But the rest, the female colleagues that are in this room that are passionately say that I am willing to take maternity leave for 3 months. No one except, I know that except Olga. Because Olga is from social security. Why? And that is true. It is even in the DSM report that the breastfeeding in Namibia, that gap is increasing. Meaning that our female colleagues, even if we mention there is a part of social protection, who want to use it, even the presenter herself could not raise the hand. So we need to look at those formulas so that at least they can cover 100%, then we know that we are doing justice. For the colleagues, we are busy amending the Labour Act, paternity will come, but our paternity will be 100%.
Yes.
With this view, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I know that this session is not a pleasant one, especially after having a very sumptuous lunch under this climatic circumstance where it's very, very hot. So, but I will try not to bore you so that you fall asleep. Let me thank the organizers of the conference for inviting us to come and share our views and share some of the information we have about the topic. As correctly said, my talk should center around the studies on social protection for informal economy in Namibia. So, in order to do that, we were able to map some of the studies or the known studies on the subject matter in the country. And this is what we came about. But before I begin to speak about them, I think it's worth to explain a little bit on how the topic of informality and social protection is appreciated in public discourse, and also how it is appreciated by those who plan and make policy. Informality for a very long time has been on the backseat of public discourse. And it being on the backseat of the public discourse, a situation has actually created a perception that there was no informality in the country. And this perception has disadvantaged those that operate and those that work in this particular sector in various ways. I can refer you or point you to all the national development plans of the nation and explore whether you would find something related to informality, if not SME, and the SME with an M at the beginning. Now, that in itself is a problem because the SME is supposed to be an avenue of graduation where you graduate to after having been a vendor. So the result then has been that the whole informal economy ended up being misunderstood and wrongly perceived. Some of the perceptions were highlighted earlier during the day with regard to issues of tax, with tax contribution, with regard to benefits. But I think this conference at the end of the day should be able to give us an idea as to how we approach this matter, and that is from the perspective of trade unions, that's from the perspective of government, that is from the perspective of business and civil society actors, as to how this issue is supposed to be engaged with. One of the scenarios one can look at is to say trade unions in Namibia already from the mid-90s started to experience loss of membership. And they could not quite really understand as to why they were losing their membership. And it really took long before the first study was commissioned, or not commissioned, but the first study happened around 2006, which was done in collaboration with the FES and the Labour Resource and Research Institute, which actually ended up creating a very good document on how to organize in times where it hasn't yet been explicitly said that there is a high level of informality, but to organize in terms when those that are working in formal labor, their numbers were decreasing. But then it was very important to consider when there was a decrease, where were the other people going to? And that is how the study on how to organize in the informal economy sector came about. Now, when this study also came about, trade unions did not appreciate this outcome very well for them to already grasp the issue at the time. So I'm sketching that scenario in relation to the creation of the Social Security Commission, the law that came into being in 1994, to say that its creation had one particular focus, and that was, the focus was for those that are employed largely in private sector, but that was large and formal, the state as the largest employer at the time. So that's why, for instance, aspects of social protection were limited amongst those that were employed as such and those that were organized as such. So that's why those that were informally employed would not even benefit from these discussions, especially in terms of when people were discussing the benefits of maternity, the benefits of being injured at work, and so on. So these two scenarios, one can look into them and say that actually this is why there seemed to have been a perception that informality was a non-issue in Namibia. But informality has been around, and we can contextualize it, or we can historicize it, and actually realize that it has already been there and it continues to be there. And I think the most important thing is that is the realization the government is beginning to get now that actually informality is increasing significantly. Because when you look at the time when the labor force survey for the first time had a module on informality, they were for the first time, and this is in the 2000s, after 2010, they were able to quantify people that were informally employed compared to before, when the Ministry of Labor, for instance, was doing labor force surveys then. So, this study was then, this 2006 study was informed by the first two studies of the government. The first one in 1994 on the character of the informal economy in the country, followed by the one that happened in 2001. Now, the one that happened in 2001 had clear objectives. And I think this is what we're talking about today, to say the objectives was to bring about up-to-date information that will assist planning and development of inclusive policies for those that are employed in the informal economy sector and for those that works, or that operates in the informal economy sector. However, unfortunately, this report, which is a very good one, by the way, was not, the recommendations thereof were not effected. And I think, Comrade Moderator, this is one of the issues we have to also look at, that we can have good policies, but if we do not have good implementation policies, it still, we still remain in the same place. Yes. Now, the Africa Labour Research Network did a bigger study of three sections of the continent. This study was titled Social Protection in Africa, where there was also a chapter on Namibia. And this book or this publication maps out the various social protection programs that exist in the identified countries. And this study was very large and wide, that it's still a very good source of reference if one is to really understand what is going on. Now, for instance, if we consider some aspects as they were illuminated on earlier by our friend from the Ministry of Poverty, one get a sense that some of these benefits, as was also stated earlier, one have to access them as a result of certain conditions. And I think the important question to ask is, why is it that they have to be accessed based on certain conditions? And I think the major issue here also becomes on how to fund these interventions. Of course, the study indicated that many of the African countries that largely relied on foreign funding, they may not, even if they wanted to extend social protection to its citizens, may not do it because of the limited limited resources. This publication I'm speaking about was published in 2012. Now, this was followed very shortly thereafter on another study in Namibia, also again through the Africa Labour Research Network, which focused on the subsector of taxi drivers. Now, the case study considered various areas of work, and the whole confusion that comes with it. For instance, by someone who owns a taxi and also drives it, by someone who owns a taxi and employs someone else, and how these people are supposed to access benefits as given as per the Social Security Act, for instance. But one thing that comes out of this study is that there was a serious need for coverage to be extended to the transport sector, to the taxi sector, because of the various things that happens, like whether it's accidents, loss of work, loss of income, and things like that. Because the issue is that you can devise these kinds of plans according to how you want them and according to how you can afford them. Now, there was also an assessment that was mentioned earlier in the morning by the International Labour Organization that assessed the various social protection flaws in Namibia. And this report was published in 2014. This report sets out a socioeconomic trajectory. It illuminates how things are. It also illuminates the gaps and the opportunities as well. Now, the report I mentioned earlier about the taxi drivers was a precursor for the two case studies, one which was done by the Ministry of Labour in conjunction with the Social Security Commission, and then the other one by Tukna. The Namibian case study report illuminates the current character of the informal economy. Now, it was not a national survey, it was a case study, so various regions, 8 regions were selected, and they were surveyed. And some of the things that were considered, for instance, is to say how many people that were surveyed, for instance, owned a smartphone, and how can this smartphone be used to disseminate information that are of particular importance to them. Suppose the Social Security Commission devises a product which they want to market to this sector. What modalities should they have to put in place so that this product is well known? The baseline study by Tukna also illuminate the various challenges that are experienced by workers that are considered vulnerable and and those that are considered informal workers. But I think the issue here is to say, all these reports seem to suggest that there is a common understanding of what is happening now, but there is no sufficient discourse about the matter. Now, given the various social protection schemes that are available in Namibia, what difficult or easy questions should we continue to ask at this juncture? Various sentiments were said earlier in the morning on social protection being a right, or social security being a right, and how it should be accessed. But we're getting a sense that the current discourse focuses more on how one should contribute in order to access this particular benefit. In his book titled Give a Man a Fish, James Ferguson educates us about new forms of distributions that are emerging across the global south, and it includes nations like Namibia, South Africa, Mexico, India, and Brazil. He illuminates, or he demonstrates, that there has been a steady expansion of paying cash grants to the poor in South Africa, specifically in Namibia. Now, in view of the fact that the current phase of the global capitalism, in view of the fact that the current phase of global capitalism has rendered a growing proportion of the populations in these nations chronically unemployed, many political activists have begun to question the assumption shared by both capitalists and Marxists that only waged workers had the right to share the social product. And I think this is very fundamental. And I'm going to return to it as I conclude. Ferguson further noted that many figures in the democratic tradition argued that social value is a value by society as a whole, that all members of society should be regarded as shareholders in a collective enterprise, and that everyone thus has the right to a share of the total social product. Quite tricky, right, when you look at it. In other words, what the question here, or the underlying issue is, why should people benefit only after contribution? Why can people not only benefit by virtue of belonging to a society that has a value in a particular social product? Now, the last report I would like to briefly speak about is called the Basic Needs Basket, which was published in 2014. This report is worth considering when we discuss access of social protection by informal workers. This report, the important finding of this report was that in order to live in Windhoek, one needed at least 9,600 Namibia dollars. And this survey was done on the underlying communities, west of the Western Bypass. And the question maybe government should begin to ask is, when we are saying that the poverty reduction has happened to a certain extent, which indicators is it really that we look at? Did you look at it in terms of financial gain, or did you look at it also in terms of how society copes in that particular context? So I think this is also one of the reports worth considering. Now, in conclusion, I think we need to consider a sound and an implementable social policy so that social protection is not considered in context of desperation and destitution. But the social policy should be able to be implemented, and certain social goods must be derived not on condition of being destitute or being poor, but on condition of being a citizen. I think thank you very much.
To the Ministry of Poverty Alleviation. And the question is, how empowering is the food bank approach? Because a few years ago, when some of us, including the unions, the churches, were proposing a basic income grant, we were told it would make people dependent and lazy. And our well-considered view at that time was that the bill empowers people. It gives them the choice about what to eat or where to sleep and where to go to school, for instance. It even empowered people enough to start small businesses that are actually running as we speak today. We do think that the food bank is disempowering. It reduces people to beggars. It doesn't give people a choice, an agency to decide what to eat. For instance, if somebody has a special dietary need, it will not be catered for through a food bank. And then I also wanted to comment on the issue of the causes of informality, and I must respectfully disagree with the view from that we heard earlier from the presenter from the ministry. It's not about people's inability or prevention to register businesses. We have a dual economic system in this country, which comprises of two economies, as we heard earlier, a small and shrinking formal sector, and the omnipresent and growing informal economy. So we do not have an industrial base. Our economy is import dependent. We are not even able to produce our own toothpaste or toothpicks. We export our natural resources in raw form most of the time. So that we need to structurally transform the nature of our economy to ensure sustainable job creation and to move towards one Namibian economy that we had already from Comrade Kalihuwa earlier. And I just wanted also to conclude, maybe if I don't get a chance to speak the next time, to say that I do think that I'm making a sincere appeal to the government, Ministry of Poverty Alleviation, or through the Ministry of Poverty Alleviation, and maybe also the Social Security Commission. And perhaps, in fact, we might need to consider the name Social Security Commission, given the issues we are discussing. Should it not rather be Social Protection Commission? It might be more appropriate, just a thought. But going back to the proposal I would like to raise is that it would be useful if the ministry can organize a platform where we can exchange views or perspectives or experiences on domestic resource mobilization for sustainable social protection. I'm sure the FES, hopefully, will be happy to support such a process, and this could be preceded by a concept or policy paper which would be the basis for discussion at the conference of Bolivia. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And thank you to all the presenters. My question, okay, now I have to make my questions to one, unfortunately. And it's also directed to Ms. Ibenga. Once again, Namibia, we are so good at presenting our best policies, and we paint a very good, positive picture. And then we don't give information on the reality, what is happening practical. We don't. In your presentation, Ms. Ibenga, some of these policies and programs, they focused on special population in the country. You know, those, like it was said so by Mr. that is the Kanagoa. You painted a very nice picture, or a good picture. However, so far we have completely excluded young people. Even in the picture that you painted today, the statistics that you gave, Namibia is a youthful population. Majority of Namibians are young people. And most of these policies and programs do not always benefit a young person who's not disabled, who's not perhaps even orphaned or is orphaned, a person that doesn't have any ailment or who's not a veteran, an unemployed young person who has nothing else to fall on, even through the different economic activities that they're trying to survive. Now, my question to you is the ministry really considering to bring some of this, a policy that's really trying to get young people out of poverty? We know they are there. For me, this is what you presented today. The statistics, unemployment for a young person between the age of 15 and 19 is almost 80%. That is somebody who's supposed to be in school. So obviously, clearly, because they're not in school and they're out of that, so it means 80%. Now imagine somebody who's 16 years old, who is unemployed, and yet when it comes to some of the social protection or benefits, they are excluded. What is your ministry doing about that? Thank you.
Goes to the Secretary General of Chukuna. Listening to you about the informal economy, your concentration was on the employed workers in the informal economy. Why did you leave the other component of the workers in the informal economy, the self-employed? Number two, as a trade union who's supposed to be wholly representing workers, regardless of their status, what would you tell us your role you've played in making sure that the informal workers in Namibia are part of the trade union movement? To Madam from the ministry, I'm speaking to you as a worker in the informal economy. I'm a market trader. And I've been trading in the informal economy for the past 22 years, having worked in the mines for 12 years, and having been retrenched after the privatization in my country in 2000. So from 2000 to date, I've never worked in the formal environment. Can you clearly clarify your definition of the informal economy? Because if I quoted you right, your definition read as those who are neither taxed or regulated by any form of government. My question is, where do you put the levies, those in the markets pay? Are those not taxed? And any other money that these informal workers pay to the local authority? Number two, seeing your programs, which you referred to as programs for the informal economy, I'm totally confused because I'm seeing informal workers being moved away from the category of workers into another category where they should be getting grants, free things, as indicated. Why can't you put informal workers as workers and enjoy the same workers' rights as workers? Thank you.
Or does it, okay, my question is going like, does this amount cover children with disability or not? Or does children with disability
fell under the child grade, the 250. Because they say what? Something where we find the child is stable, and this child lost both parents or one parent. Now, does the child get the grade 250 or just 250? And the other question is, do your office consider parents with children with severe disability? Say, for instance, I'm a mother, first year I work in the informal sector. The second year I get the child, or my child get the disability where it's severe, I need to be with the child 24 hours. Do your office maybe consider to accommodate this parent to get something? As now, this parent won't go and look for a job. Otherwise, they will say, because someone else again to take on the child where they can afford it. Thank you.
My question goes to Salome. It's regarding different social protection programs that are developed in Namibia, being implemented by different institutions and organizations and the ministries. My question is, in terms of municipal poverty, how do you coordinate and harmonize the social plans for them to be able to tackle the really needed society of Namibia?
This country has been mostly led through cabinet directors. Most of the things are not passed in parliament and became laws. It's cabinet directors, and that's why sometimes me as a member of parliament, I will only see it is a directive coming from Minister of Education, Minister of what, and we never pass that thing in the cabinet, in parliament. So my first question, maybe Salome, the 13,000 paternity leave for us women, honestly speaking, give us a choice. You cannot, for somebody who earns 30,000 per month, to go on maternity leave and get the 13,000. It is ridiculous, and that's why women don't want to go to the maternity ward anymore. It's either you take your vacational leave or you take the 13,000, and it is not worth it. So you will sit with a lot of debts at the end of the day because you are not addressing the issue of maternity leave, which is 3 months. So look into this one. Let it be a choice. If I want to contribute more so that I can get better when I'm maternity leave, that can come in. And my second concern is the school feeding program. As a teacher by profession, the Secretary of Tun was right. I was teaching at the school, 1,200 learners. Only 32 learners were benefiting from this feeding program. It is not for all the learners. So we cannot come and brag today and say we have the feeding scheme there, but you know it's only 30 learners at the school who are benefiting from it. And it is another way of discriminating. Because these 30 learners who must actually go for that porridge, they don't want to go because the others are laughing and then they are poor, they are what. Just give the porridge to everybody who wants the porridge. This is how the colonial masters have done it. Give it to all of us, whether you are poor, rich, or whatever, we just enjoy the porridge. And then my last concern is the $50 per child. You know, as I said previously, I will never shut up on this one. If somebody who is on pension, you are a pensioner, you got 1,200, you are getting veterans money of 2,200, and then you are getting a salary because all the old people are still working of 60,000 per month, and then you are coming and claiming 250 is enough for a child. 250 is a joke. Honestly speaking, and we have to put our heads together and say, if you are still working, you must not buy and not get on the list of getting veteran money or even this monthly pension fund, because this is the way that other people cannot benefit because of selfish people like some of us. Thank you very much.
Two questions. The one is on charcoal producers and the labor relations that is taking place there. And the second one is social protection for refugees in a given country. Now, on the first one, charcoal production takes place by a certain farmer requesting a contractor to clear the farm for a improvement of grazing, and then they can use the material for charcoal production. He can either employ a contractor that is going to employ subcontractors, or he can directly employ laborers, the subcontractors. Now, for the subcontractors in the who are laborers, they do not enjoy social protection because they are considered to be contractors in their own rights. That is the same relationship, I think, that exists between the taxi driver and the owner of the taxi. I think that will be answered through that line as well. Now, on the refugees, we have got two regimes that is governing refugees in countries. The one is the camp-based, like the case of Namibia, or Syria camp in Botswana, the Dugan camp, and then you have got another regime that is the free movement of refugees across the land, like in South Africa or Angola. So I just wanted to know whether there is, in this case of refugees, social protection worked out either in the United Nations grants that is provided to manage the refugees camp, or what is happening there. Thank you very much.
The issues of the own account workers, where they own businesses. Now I have deliberately went to correct my notes so that I can check whether in reality my notes have excluded them. But I want to read it directly. I said that Chukna, we have identified 3 responses. 1 is the regulations, 2 is the protections, 3 is the promotion. Under regulations, I put a sentence that says, for the regulations, we need appropriate regulations for both enterprises and employment. I think the enterprises cover the use of own accounts. So we are not discriminating around it. And if you go to the third one, we talk about promotions. We identify the issues of access to capital, the marketing skills, infrastructures, the renting issues that was there. I think that one of the speakers talked about it. I think the Vice President. You know, we talk about renting issues, but the law is there to establish a renting board. But they're running away to establish those renting board, and then they come and talk about the rent is expensive. The same person. So it's very important that we need to, so on that one, we are talking about it and we don't discriminate. Because there is always a very thin line. If you consider on that thin line, we might disadvantage one or the other. The other one is the trade unions and the roles in organizing the informal sector. Can I request the acting SD of the informal union to stand up? Nindau stands for Namibia Informal, Domestic and Allied Workers Union. And its formation was facilitated, you can see, facilitated by Tukna through a Congress resolution of Tukna, which means it is close to our heart. With me, I came with the Secretary General of also Indian Workers Union, Victor Stella, organizing in the supermarkets. In my presentation, I said that those people that are working in the supermarket are informal. With me, the Secretary General of Football Players Union, where is it? Also, are the football players, especially in the premature league like ours, Namibia, informal or not informal? Are they contract or contractor? We are still debating that. So I'm mentioning this, and also with us, there is also the president of Taxi Union of Namibia. Well, you could see now. Therefore, as the issues of organizing informal sector, whether on own account or as an employee, it is close to the heart of the organization called Trade Union Congress of Namibia. Then you went further, the issues of demarcating, separating workers, this from others. I think in the video, I made it clear that we are moving to one economy, one worker, one benefit. there should never be discrimination. That is what we're moving towards. The other one is the issues of maternity. I think that you touched that very good. We have to look at it, and I think that the question was directed to a wrong person. I think that tomorrow, Olka, from Social Security, can you also respond to that? You are the right person to respond to that maternity and ceilings and all kind of things, plus paternity. The other one is the contract. Contractors versus workers, labor. The issues of the so-called workers and all. I think that in the labor end, we have to pick it up. In the labor sector, we pick it up that there is a deficiency somewhere in the law. And we are trying to close those nuts so that it can be nicely tied up. Because they are now using that to bypass many things. Government is using that to expand the security. Employers using that to run away from their responsibility. Then the last one is the migrant workers. I think that I know what refugees. I don't know whether you were, is that right word? Maybe you wanted to talk about refugees, or maybe the migrant workers and something. But I want to mention also migrant workers. Yes, as a trade union movement, it is enjoying our attention. And now at the SANDC level, we are even discussing the portabilities of social protections. If workers have been working here in agriculture or in mining or whatsoever, and you have reached your 60, now you want to migrate back home, Zim or Zambia or somewhere. What about what I contributed to social security here? Why are I not taking it along so that it can continue benefiting them? So this is a drive that we are trying to drive and is on top of the agenda. So with this view, thank you very much.
I think most of the questions that have been asked, I think we could have done justice if we could have allowed a presentation on the proposed social protection policy framework. Because most of the things that are being questioned, we have tried and addressed them in the proposed social protection framework. And I think maybe if time allows, assuming that we are going to have the same audience that we have today, we might need to adjust maybe our program so that we give the time for a presentation on the social protection policy framework. Because issues of youth unemployment, issues of women empowerment, issues of parents that are taking care, so we call it caretaker grants, they have been tried to be addressed in the social protection policy. Issues of maternity leave, we have proposed in the policy, social protection policy framework that maternity leave should be extended even for a period longer. And in addition to a full coverage of salary. So a patient should not be disadvantaged or be punished when she's giving birth. That is the time when she even needs income, but that is the time that the income is being taken away. That's why most of the ladies, when they go to give birth, they most of the time have to forgo their days and just take annual vacation leave, in addition perhaps to an adjustment by the doctor to give him to give her sick leave. So, Mr. Chivikwa, I really maybe humble request you, if time allows, for us, we have a presentation already because we are doing consultation with various stakeholders. We are planning to go to almost everybody so that we make sure we cover everything that we need to cover so that when the policy is passed or the policy is adopted, we are not going to propose changes to the policy. So I don't know, but it's something that I'm submitting for consideration. Just like maybe I can attend to some of the questions, but with that, having said what I've said, it's really up to the organizer, us, including ourselves, because we are also co-hosting. so that we can maybe, because the presentation is ready. Tony is here with us. The drafting or the development of the social protection policy have been done with the assistance of the EU, SPS, so it's the European Union Social Protection System. They have sponsored a consultant for us who is helping us to implement a roadmap that we have developed. There is a social protection core team that have been established through our ministry, and it comprises of different players whose institution have a mandate or a stake in a social protection. That core team has developed a roadmap for which the development of the policy framework is being developed. So maybe to answer some of the questions that have been raised, I will start off with the food bank. I think the way people perceive food bank, I don't know, I think it's a matter of a mindset also, because the implementation of food bank, it was done based on the need that was realized from what is happening on the ground. Because we have people that were going to bed hungry, and we have evidence because we have carried out an assessment on the implementation of food bank. It was done by the Department of Social Science at the University of Namibia. We contracted them to do a study on how effective or how helpful is the food bank. And the results are there. What we don't understand is that when we give this food, instead of giving money, so we are giving food in essence that when we give people food, they will be able to free a certain amount of income that we're supposed to spend on food, and then they will free it to meet other needs of the household. So that's why I don't want to see food bank as in just distribution of food. We are trying to free income so that what they have can also be spent on other things that is not being given. So the same way people are looking at food bank is the same way other people are looking at the proposal for the basic income grant. Because earlier I said, if you were in a situation that these people find themselves in, you would not be talking the way you are talking. Because imagine somebody going to bed hungry because there is no food, while us that are working, we are throwing even food in the bins. But there is somebody out there, even your neighbor, is going to bed hungry, but you are throwing food in the bins. So these are the motives, and when we talk, I think these are the things that we should think deeper. So food bank is a complement to the government food program that is being given, being given to the rural areas, the food emergency, like I've indicated earlier. So it's to complement that program, because there was then a gap. So what we are trying to do is to close the gaps that exist. And there were also proposals that perhaps we need to organize platforms where we can have discussion on resource mobilization. We welcome that, and we take note. You can just contact our ministry, and then we can see how we can collaborate, because even the problem that we are sitting with now, Treasury is at us. They are saying physical space is just not there, but we want to cover everybody. So resource mobilization is a very important aspect to us, and therefore you are welcome, my sister, so that we can see how we can mobilize resources for funding. And I think the issue of the focus of programs excluding youth, I don't know what we are trying to say here, because in the presentation that I made, I have indicated how youth enrollment in vocational trainings are being addressed. And it's from that perspective that if we invest in skill development and vocational trainings, then we would be able to reduce unemployment, because those youth, they will be then be able to have skill, they acquire skill, and then they will be able to even open up their own businesses. And the proposal that we are making in the social protection policy framework is that in addition to the training that we are providing, we need to provide them with startup capital so that once they have finished with the training, they can then be able to start their small businesses and even assist other youth. So that's how we are trying to address it. The other one was on, I think, was on the definition of the informal sector. I think the speaker have only looked at a part of the definition that I gave, but there is a second part to that where it indicated that the informality, well, maybe I can go to the slide. Oh, but this thing is off. But maybe let me just have it. I think I have the print out for the definition. Where I have indicated that informality can also be seen from a perspective of individuals as comprising of those employed or self-employed that have no proper contracts according to labor laws. They lack social securities, medical aids, decent wages, and safe working conditions. So that was an extension of the definition that I gave first, the one on enterprises. Okay, on the child disability, whether it's falling in the category of the 1,250 or in the category of 250, for child disability, from the age of 0 to 16, they fall under the child grant. So they are only subject to a 250. But even us from our side, we were arguing to say the need of this person is more at the earlier stage of development than when that person is older. But this is what the Ministry of Gender, because disability for that age does not fall under the Ministry of Poverty Eradication. We only kick in from the age of 16. So when a person attains the age of 16 to 59, because that is the cutoff, because then automatically the person will qualify for the old age grant. So we only consider from 16 to 59. So that is when they will fall in the category of to qualify for the grant on disability. Otherwise, from the earlier age to the late 16, so they fall under Ministry of Labor. And in the proposed social protection framework, we are saying development of, or in the development or in the social protection policy, there is an area for the implementation of a single registry. And this one is then going to harmonize the social safety net program so that at least we are able to say, so if you are getting a veteran fund or veteran grant, for example, you should not perhaps maybe benefit from other grants, so that we can break that gap of the people that are not covered. Because you now currently have people who is a veteran, is benefiting from old age, or maybe it's because the person is disabled, is also benefiting from the disability grant, and is maybe a retired public servant, is, despite all this, is also getting a pension from GIPF. So we are saying that we need to consider most of these things, and those proposals are standing in the social protection policy framework that we are developing. Maternity, I think I have touched on it. The school feeding programs, the social protection policy animal that we are talking about, again, is trying to cover this so that we make it universal. Even for the child grant, we have made a proposal that it's even going to cost us more if we are to target. So therefore, in the social protection policy, we are proposing that the child grant should be universal. But again, Tatekala is going to hit us on this one. That's why as private sector, we also need them to come in so that it's not only initiative by government. Private sector, they also need to come in so that they can meet the government halfway, and we should be able to fund these programs, and then we become more inclusive. What else did I leave? I think more, all in all, that's all what I can say for now, but if we want, and if we really see that there's a need, we as a ministry, we are ready to do a presentation on the proposals that we are making on the development, or rather in the developed draft policy framework that we have. With that long speech, I thank you.
The issue of refugees, Mr. Muya is here. I think he can be able maybe to help you on the bilateral also. Namibia still needs to ratify the SADC protocol on employment. And there is an issue of migrant labor also addressed there. So I think the trade unions don't really want to deal with the issue of migration. I don't know what it is that they are shying away from. The other issue is on organization of informal workers by associations that are organically emerging. Whilst trade unions are redevising strategies to organize in the informal sector, I think they also need to have, or to start to have a conversation with such associations. My brother there from Zambia, who just asked that question earlier, we attended a meeting together some time ago, and this sentiment that is coming out is that they need to start to speak together because they have a common issue they need to also deal with, besides the other politics that entities always have. The other one is my friend from the Ministry of Poverty actually already confirmed my position, which I highlighted earlier during the presentation, to say there is always an issue of funding. You know, this social protection, who is going to fund it? Where are we going to get the money from? Is there political will to dedicate a particular percentage of the GDP to fund this social protection? And how is it going to be operationalized? I think this is really a debate we need to have, which should not end here. And the last one is the issue of contributions to social security. I think where we are missing the bus is when those that are operating as informal economy operators and workers are saying that we want to also contribute, but we only have this much. What is it that can be done? I think that's a question that needs to be answered and be engaged, because it is not really about them not wanting to contribute. They want to contribute, but there should be a very good modality to contribute, for them to be able to contribute. So I think these are the really main issues that comes out of the last session that are of pertinence to me. Thank you.